So it's really important that people educate themselves, and the average consumer, I see it all the time and read the articles, but the average consumer, they're complaining about the price, but they don't understand the situation too.
All right. Welcome to another episode of The Den. I'm Eric Whitener, broker owner of the Knoxville Real Estate Group. And The Den is a place where you can come to find out more stuff about the housing market, find stuff out about the local community, like what's going on in the greater Knoxville area. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast because our goal is to put out engaging content every week. Today, my special guest is Val Privet, owner of Beacon Insurance Advisors, an independent insurance agency, which means they represent multiple companies, saving the customer time and money.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You didn't tell me I had to be engaging at all. Didn't tell me that.
Well, I figured that would just come naturally.
Oh, we hope so.
Well, glad to have you on the show.
Good to be here.
So today we're going to talk about quite a few things, but obviously we're going to talk about insurance.
Absolutely.
So why don't we just start off? Let's just start off with what is Beacon Insurance Advisors?
Beacon Insurance Advisors is a place where you can come and we do the shopping for you. We sell auto, home, toys, most everything but health insurance.
Okay.
And I have a great referral source for that as well if someone needs health insurance. But we shop for the client, and then we typically will give them 3 choices to look and see what works better for them, because everything's a little different. Everyone likes a different candy bar, so we let them have that choice.
So that would be what, correct me if I'm wrong, would that be considered like a broker? Like you broker insurance maybe?
A lot of people in common terminology would say that, yes, I
Okay.
am a broker. But a broker, typically, if you look at the definition, means they have to go through a third party. We do not. We have direct contracts with all of our companies. We just have contracts with several companies, 10 to be exact.
Okay, and that's different from, say, State Farm or Farm Bureau.
Those are called exclusive agents, and they have one contract. So they most of the time the contract that they have with their company does not allow them to have a contract with another company.
So they can only really quote with
That
their
one
company.
option.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. And I did that. That's how I first got in the business. I did that for 8 years, and I found out for me it wasn't advantageous for my client. I really like the alternative of giving my client choices.
So, okay, so you said you were exclusive for 8 years. How long have you been doing insurance?
Longer than I want to say. Last year was my 25th year.
Okay.
I think I got licensed in September, so this September will be 26 years.
Yeah,
It's the longest career I've had, and when you get my age, you might have had several, but it's the longest career I've had.
well, so speaking of that, how'd you get into insurance? Like what got you in it?
Doesn't everyone grow up wanting to be an insurance agent? I went to school to be a physical education teacher coach. I wanted to coach because those were the greatest influences in my life. So once I did that, I did education for 13 years. Knew a lot of insurance companies like coaches, were competitive, were hardworking. So I had several coaching friends that became insurance agents. So it interested me. There's a choice in my career path, a time where I could make a decision, and I picked insurance. Unfortunately, the first company I picked, I stayed with them 8 years, but they were an exclusive company. And I just knew there was a better way, so I started my own independent agency after that.
And in that independent agency that you first started,
Privet Insurance Group.
Privet Insurance, and that's when I met you. That's where you were. It was your shop.
Absolutely.
Which then you grew that to a certain point.
Right, and I really thought I wanted to slow down. The market was changing, and there were some things occurring, so I did sell that, and I didn't slow down as much as I thought. So I started Beacon, and we've been doing this 6 years now, and August will be 6 years. So
The time flies.
yeah, it does. It's amazing,
Well,
for sure.
Well, and I gotta say, so like, not everybody builds a business that they can sell. And
True.
so I feel like that's like a cool accomplishment. And then like not everybody builds a business that they can sell and then can turn right around
Start
and
another
start
one.
another one. In
Yes.
the same field. So that's pretty awesome. But needless to say, you by this point know your way around the insurance industry, I would say.
I do, and sometimes that's a great thing. Sometimes it's not so great because I have a lot of wisdom. I have a lot of designations, which just means I love to learn and to help people because I think the sharper I am, the more I can help them. But it also means I don't have much tolerance for people who I know are making a mistake. We do let them pick, but we try to guide them in the correct way because they can definitely make a $10 decision here that will cost them thousands at claim time, and we try to prevent that.
So let's just go ahead and kind of segue into that.
Okay.
Okay, so you offer obviously home, auto, and everything else, but home and auto would probably be the most, I would say, common insurance.
It is.
Probably,
Yes.
and so when it comes to home insurance, when somebody buys a house and they get a mortgage, which almost everybody does, let's just say, that payment is made up of principal, interest, taxes, and insurance.
You got it.
And the only two things that can change are taxes and insurance. So I know that people get very price sensitive. They definitely don't want to see their taxes go up, right? But
Nor
then
do I.
no, and they also don't want to see their insurance go up. But that's the one thing that people can shop. The one thing people can try to figure out and
Or
maybe,
shortcuts.
or
Sometimes.
shortcut. And so that's, I mean, we hear that story down in Florida a lot right now. People don't even have insurance on them.
Yes, I can't even imagine.
So what are some of the things that you look for, and what are some of the things that maybe, what are some of the things you look for when you're talking with somebody like, hey, we need to make sure we're covered here because this is an issue.
If you talk to the average client, one of their biggest investments in their life is their home.
100%.
And it never ceases to amaze me that they will take their biggest investment and want the cheapest coverage for that. That doesn't make sense even when you say it out loud.
Yeah.
So we try to show them that. We make sure that they understand. I don't mind if someone doesn't have a coverage as long as they understand they do not have that coverage. And that's one of the biggest things if I'm telling people, look and see, know what kind of coverage, because ignorance is no excuse with your insurance policy. You're signing, we say an application, but you're actually signing a contract that says these are the things, this is the truth, this is my representation, and this is what the insurance company will provide. So we definitely go into coverage and make sure they understand that. We also make sure that they insure their home for replacement costs, not market value. Now, with this inflated market value right now, sometimes that's a closer number. But a lot of times, 3 years ago, I would have it where my replacement costs would be more than they were buying it for. So they would be very hesitant. But as I say, and an old insurance agent told me this, I don't want them counting nails when they're rebuilding the house.
Yeah.
And that's a scary proposition. When the Gatlinburg fires occurred in 2016, I think, there were a lot of those people underinsured. And so can you imagine being in one of the most emotional stages of your life and then having to worry about money and do I have enough to rebuild my house?
Yeah.
So those are the type of things that we try to make real for the client now so they don't have to deal with it should it occur.
Yeah. And I would say that, so people obviously want to shop, people are price sensitive, right? But what happens, and I see this happen with mortgages a lot when people are shopping rates, is they look at the bottom line and they don't necessarily see everything that makes up the bottom line.
But what bottom line is it?
Yeah, like what's the payments? So we try to tell people, I see this happen often, especially when it comes to we refer them to, let's just say, I say to Kim, right? Kim gets them pre-approved, and then we go out, we find a house, and once they get one under contract with Kim's pre-approval,
Now they're really serious, right?
Yeah, then they want to shop, and then what happens though is they don't realize that, well, yeah, maybe that interest rate's a little bit better, but what you don't realize is you're paying points or
Fees,
fees.
yes.
Yeah, like it's made up somewhere else. And so we always say like, hey, make sure you go back, like go back to Kim, go back to Vicky, and say, hey, look, I got this quote.
Yes,
Let's sit down and compare this apple to apples, because a true advisor will be able to say like, hey, this is where it's different.
exactly.
This is where you're paying for it.
I think there's a difference in price and cost, because that cheap price might have a high cost at the end.
Right.
And that's the one thing that we try to make sure that people understand.
Well, coming from the insurance standpoint, the difference between like actual value versus
Actual cash value versus
versus
replacement
cost.
cost.
So like we had a hailstorm here, what, 2011?
2011,
So-
April 27, as a matter of fact. I know the number.
I mean, just ripped through the area.
Yes.
Did tons of damage. I mean, roofs, siding, windows, cars, you name it. There will be, I think, a second wave of roofs here soon, because all those roofs are starting to get old.
Absolutely.
But could you imagine, all of a sudden, this hailstorm comes through, and now you need a new roof, and you're finding out that the insurance company's only going to pay you X amount based on what that roof is.
Exactly. Well, it's the same principle. I talked to a woman last week, and I said, "What's your deductible?" Because she was shopping, and she said 1,000. When she actually looked at her policy, it was 2,600, because she had a percentage deductible. So that percentage deductible, every year as your dwelling goes up, your deductible increases as well. So when you're looking at that, do you have that money set aside? Do you have enough money to repair your roof so you don't have additional damage? If you have actual cash value versus replacement costs, then you're also going to pay that depreciated amount. So many people will call me and say, "Oh, well, I got a cheaper rate." And I'm like, "Okay, so tell me who it was." And there are several companies now who do actual cash value. I'm like, "Okay, so if I change mine to actual cash value on your roof, now I'm right there at the same, but I would not write the actual cash value."
And here's why.
Yeah, exactly. And, people tend to think nothing's going to happen to them. It always happens to the other person. But I've seen it so many times in my career. It happens in threes. That's why I'm really big on having a relationship with your insurance agent, so they can call and I can say, "Okay, so let's get an estimate, either auto or home, see how much it costs before we report that claim." Because you might have a small claim, you could pay it out of pocket, $1,500 with $1,000 deductible, but then the next one might be the huge hailstorm where it's going to take you $20,000 to replace your roof.
Yeah.
Now you have two claims, and instead you should have paid the first claim. And that's what I do as an advisor. And I tell my clients, I will tell you and recommend, you will not always like it, but then it's your decision. But they are making an educated decision and not an ignorant decision.
And that's huge. And I'll also say, so a couple things I picked up on that. One is, oftentimes I think quote unquote cheap insurance comes with call center mentality.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So most people don't realize, like, insurance is there to protect you in the event of a loss, but it doesn't mean every time you lose a little something, you're not supposed to wear it out, because that ends up costing you in the long run. And we've seen this happen plenty of times where somebody, I had a plumbing leak or something happened. I called my insurance agent. Then I had something else, and next thing you know, either getting canceled or they're
Prices are so high they don't want to pay them.
it. So it's like it doesn't make financial sense in that regard. Insurance is supposed to be more catastrophic.
It is, and I think the insurance industry that we have created the monster, because we've added every perk trying to outdo the other company. And so when the rubber hits the road and those claims occur, then you have insurance companies who are experiencing more losses than they wanted to. Right now, we're in what's termed, and in my 25 years, this is the hardest market we've had. I actually have companies, I have 10, and when we run them, today I'm not getting proposals from all 10. I'm getting proposals from maybe 4 because it doesn't fit their appetite. I had someone call me 2 weeks ago, and I couldn't find a place for them. That's been unheard of. I've never had that situation.
Really?
So it's really important that people educate themselves, and the average consumer, I see it all the time and read the articles, but the average consumer, they're complaining about the price, but they don't understand the situation too. So if I move and I have a claim in the first 60 days, the first 90, I'm probably a good chance they can get off of that in the first 60 days, or I can get a non-renewal. If I've been with a company for a longer period of time, then I have some equity there. Now, it's not always the case because companies are making hard bottom line decisions now. I mean, a lot of them are non-renewing.
How much of that is from what you would consider like local issues versus the national?
This is a national issue. In Tennessee, we have a lot of weather situations. We're fortunate in East Tennessee. I think a lot of times storms come over, they hit the plateau and they go north of us. But Middle Tennessee, Memphis, and it all is in the same pot a lot of times. So we're seeing it locally as well.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because, I've lived here since 2007. Historically, I know I've told people like, well, we don't normally see this, we don't normally see that. I can say in the last couple of years, I mean, what was it? Was it 2019? We had all of that rain. So we had crazy flooding in spots that never flooded. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
We've had 2011. We had the hailstorm.
We just had a tornado.
Yeah, well,
in Morgan County.
So, and that's one. We had. I mean, right here off of Lovell Road.
Yes.
And now we don't normally. That's not something we normally see. So people say like when Nashville got tore apart with that one tornado, we had a lot of people who were interested in Knoxville, and they were like, "Hey, look, I'm not interested in tornadoes." And I was like, "Well, we don't really get those here." Well, now I'm like, well.
But Eric, think about this. If you look back, we've had them in Loudon, we've had them in Blount, we've had them in Greene, and we've had them in Morgan. And so in the last 10 years, you've probably at least every other year had it. We've been extremely fortunate they've hit in rural areas.
Yeah.
They haven't hit like Nashville and
that one like ripped through downtown.
Yeah, come through the heart of our city or our residential areas. So we've been extremely fortunate. When we do our proposals via video, and when I talk about I just lost my word. Catastrophes, what I do is say, in my opinion, our biggest is a tornado ripping through here. We had the Gatlinburg fires in 16, which I referenced earlier, 2,500 plus structures destroyed. So when things like that happen, more and more it's happening here. A lot of people are blaming climate, and that does have something to do with it. But I just read an article last week that inflation is terrible for insurance right now too, because like auto parts are up 36% when your average consumer price index is only 23. You're looking at used cars 29%, auto parts 36%, construction cost up 42%.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is the perfect storm. And also, before, people were living in, everyone wants a beautiful view now, or on the ocean, or the top of the mountains, as you've seen in Gatlinburg. So like 55% of that new construction is in high-risk areas. So it's naturally going to drive the prices up. And I'm still going to go back to, that's why you need to talk to an insurance professional. They can help you. They can shop for you. Makes a big difference.
It's more than just bottom line, it's more than just filling out an app online. It's a conversation. It's, hey, what do we really have here? What is I would say that conversation's different if you're talking to somebody who maybe living paycheck to paycheck versus somebody who maybe has, a couple million in the bank, right?
Yeah, who can pay a $10,000 deductible. And I'm okay with that. I think you have to meet everyone where they are.
Yeah.
But those are the mistakes that I see that it happens to. People just don't understand the coverage, or they take the cheapest. And I'm all about saving money. I get that because I pay premiums as well. And I drive pretty fast, so my premiums are higher too. So, you know, but those things happen, and if you have a professional who can guide you through that, it makes a big difference. Because when you call that 800 number, you're talking to someone different every time.
Yeah.
And you're talking to someone who is getting a paycheck. You know, they're not a local. They don't contribute to your community. They don't care as much, and that makes a big difference.
Well, they definitely don't know your situation.
Right. Right. And they you know, the questions to ask, I just see so many times. And one of my biggest thrills is when someone says, well, no one's ever asked me that. And I say, good, I'm being thorough. You know, because that's what we want to do. Because I'm going to tell you, at claim time, that's the worst time to find out what kind of coverage you have. Yeah. That's a scary proposition.
Well, so one topic that's kind of come to my mind, and because I'm kind of curious. You know, if you come from, you know, I'm from Florida, we have sinkholes.
Yes.
Here in the Knoxville area, we do have some. We have sinkholes. Yes. I like to say they're a bit different because people are like, well, there's a sinkhole. Right. Right. I'm like, in Florida, the earth just falls out from under your feet, yes. And you know, then there's a sinkhole. Here they know where they are. They don't build on them, all that stuff. But there's also, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're also close to a fault line, right? Are we?
Yeah, I couldn't identify the fault line, but we've had rumblings, tremors, and I pay attention because when that happens, our volume of calls will go up because people are asking about earthquake. But what companies have done now is earthquake used to be a higher deductible at 5%. Now all my companies have gone to 10%. Because I think because the probability of it happening are higher, so they're also reducing their costs at that time. But yeah, I do think earthquake is a concern here.
So I know people move away from California, let's say, for a myriad of reasons. One of them also being major fires.
Absolutely.
You know, mudslides, you know, you name all these weird environmental things that they deal with.
They've all happened in California.
yeah, they've all.
That's for sure.
I mean, and then Florida, I mean, obviously the main ones, hurricanes, you know, and I lived in Central Florida and had to deal with 4 of them in 1 year.
Yeah.
And so, but then you come up here, and I'd like to say we're relatively chill. Compared to those 2 states, we're relatively chill.
Absolutely.
But that's not to say things don't happen or could happen. Mm-hmm. There is no, I guess, there's no real true safe spot. So having good insurance, good coverage, is pretty important.
I think we're very fortunate that we are. You know, it's not terrible, and we've been extremely lucky on the weather. That is the tornado is our biggest threat, I think. But if you would have said that, you know, the fires that occurred in Gatlinburg in 2016 were a major issue. And with the building that's occurring there, you still have the high fire scores, for sure.
So if you could, how hard would it be to say, like, here are 2 or 3 things you should definitely, pay attention to on your policy? What would they be?
I think the one is your dwelling cost, that you need to calculate what your dwelling cost is. You know your square footage and see what it is per square foot. I think it's really hard in Knoxville to build anything under $225 a square foot right now. And the number has moved from $150 to $225. And if you have IRM finishes, you're at $350. So you need to know, call a contractor. Find out. Most people are absolutely surprised with that. The other thing is I'd make sure my liability limits are high. Most people, the companies start at $100,000 in liability. You can go, if you can get $1 million, I would take it. That coverage is usually very cheap. But if something catastrophic happened at your site or at if you're on the golf course, anything like that happened, at least you've got that liability coverage following you.
Well, and I think that's something a lot of people don't realize is your homeowner's insurance can protect you
Other than your home.
Yeah,
right.
outside of your house.
Absolutely, absolutely. The other thing I would say too, things like water sewer backup, it's a nasty situation. You really want a professional cleaning it up. A lot of agents will throw on $5,000. When you say sewage, that doesn't touch anything. So if you don't have a minimum of 10,000, you don't have enough there. And then there are some other perks, but those are the main ones. And I also think it's really important your contents. How much coverage do you have on that? Is it enough? And do you know? Do you have a list of most of your contents? Because if you have a fire or people go, well, I can go in and look. I'm like, if we have a tornado, and your stuff is 5 miles away and strewn in between, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
And you forget. If I talk to people who have had fires and who will go 3 years later to reach for a pot or something and go, oh, I didn't replace that. So if you don't have a list of your contents, I have one for mine listed down, and the more you can put there, the better. You don't have to have a value. You can hunt that value after a claim, but you definitely need to know everything you have.
What ways do you recommend other than
Pictures?
Pictures.
Don't video.
Don't.
I'm going to tell you, claims adjusters are overworked, and if they got to watch a video and rewind, but if they can go through pictures, it's a lot easier. And at that kind of claim time, you want to make it as easy as possible on the adjuster.
And so that makes sense because, you take pictures today, like with your cell phone, you can
Absolutely.
store that on the cloud. Because I sit here and I think about it like a physical list, and then I'm like, okay, where do you put the list?
Right.
Because if the list is sitting in your house.
I 2 places. You need it in 2 places and back it up. And you can take the pictures, then you can make the list later. I went through my mom's house a couple of years ago, and it took me about 30 minutes. And I'm saying be very thorough. Make sure you open every drawer, whether it's in the kitchen, the utility room, the bedroom. Hey, do you have 10 pairs of socks? Are you really a sock person?
Yeah.
And do you have 25? That matters. And when you start replacing just those things, it can add up more quickly than you'd think.
So in clothes, stuff like, definitely
Absolutely.
clothes like what's hanging in your closet, what's in your garage. If you really think about it, here's the thing about a house, especially if you've moved up. You have your starter home, you move into your next home, people go, oh, I got all this space. Well, it doesn't take long to fill it.
Fill it up.
And that's I've seen, everybody does it. They fill their house. So you'd be surprised at what you've accumulated. And you, like you said, you don't realize you don't have it until you
don't have it.
Until you don't have it. So I think that's a great piece of advice.
And there are limits, guns, jewelry, collectibles, art, rugs. Most policies have an internal limit on them. So if you want, if you have a $100,000 gun collection, you get like $2,500 in coverage for guns. So you definitely, do you want that covered or not? Is it in a fireproof safe? So all of those are questions. I'm not saying you have to have the insurance for it, but you need to know that this is covered or this isn't covered.
Well, yeah, because, if all that got destroyed, that example, because we're in East Tennessee, there are definitely
guns, yes.
And you just assume that it's covered, and then you find out it's not. That's a really bad scenario.
It's not a great phone call for me either.
No. So again, bottom line, and this is one of those things I don't think people. Business, I think, has kind of done this. The not to throw anybody under the bus, but the Geicos, the National Generals, the quick and easy, cheap, get an online quote, don't talk to anybody, have made it seem like that's how insurance should be. Mm-hmm. But the realization is everybody's policy is probably going to be individual.
Oh, absolutely.
And so therefore, it does require a conversation. And one, as a consumer, we need to be just upfront and honest and say, well, this is what I've got. Give me my options. And from there, I'll let you know what I'm okay paying for and what I'm not.
Yeah, I'll give you a fine example of that too. We're talking about the guns. And I have a company, Safeco, who has unlimited gun coverage. So if they had a $100,000 gun collection, I might put them with Safeco, and Safeco might be $200 higher than any of my other options. But if I had to schedule those guns on another company, then it would probably be $500 more. So it makes sense when you're honest, you ask the questions, and you know what companies are better. And companies do, as I use the candy bar analogy, they all have different appetites. It's amazing. When I run that through 10 companies, sometimes the difference can be $1,000 on auto and home, because it might be a zip code issue, it might be your credit score, it might be they don't like youthful drivers. All of those factors, most companies have 50 factors, 100 factors. So how do you fit in their formula? And so if you had to pick up the phone and call 10 different places, or call Geico and NatGen, all of that, we do that work for you. Yeah. And we've asked enough questions on the front end to know which company would fit better for you. And so that's our advantage as an independent agent, for sure.
I like it. I like it.
So one other thing, I'm going to interrupt you. One other thing, make sure that you update your policy too. I had a guy one time, he called for something, and we were just talking, and he said, he added 1,200 square feet to his home and did not tell me. That's almost a home for some people. Yeah. So had he had a claim during that time, he wouldn't have had enough coverage to rebuild his house. So make sure you keep up with it, and you tell your agent, hey, I've added this, I've added, especially if you add square footage. All of those things are really important.
Well, yeah, and on top of that, like we talk about, like jewelry stuff. Any time you were to acquire
10-year anniversary.
10-year anniversary, yeah, just had one.
Yes, you did.
Anytime you add something of value that could be lost or damaged or stolen, like you want to make sure you're protected for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I wouldn't want to buy said ring again.
No, you wouldn't. Not with your wallet, anyway. I get it. Let's use the insurance company's wallet for sure.
So we kind of skirted around some of it. We not skirted, but we kind of touched on it. But some of the biggest issues you're seeing right now in the industry, broad and local, what from an insider perspective, what is it that you see is causing all this going on?
Locally, what's happening, we're getting some non-renewals, you're getting an increase in premium. And part of that people don't understand as well is those increases, your dwelling costs may have gone, let's make it easy, round numbers, from $400,000 to $475,000.
So if you bought that house in 2019, by 2022 you were up probably $150,000.
Exactly. So the replacement cost, remember I told you that 40% in construction, so that's more too. So your premium increased, but your coverage increased as well, as it needed to for you to have enough to rebuild that home. So those increases in the dwelling costs, increase in deductibles. A lot of companies are going mandatory $2,500 deductible now. And I hate to say it, but the roofing situation where you get the door knockers, they come and say, hey, you got a claim, I can get you a brand new free roof. I really think that in the next 5 years, we're going to see actual cash value on all the roofs. Because if your roof is 15 years old, we shouldn't pay for a brand new roof. Mm-hmm. But as long as my companies offer replacement costs, I'm going to sell that. But actually for the insurance company, it makes better sense because that would take care of those knockers, door knockers.
The frivolous claims.
Yes. You're paying, you have a little hailstorm, you don't have a lot of damage, but then someone comes through and says, hey, I can get you a new roof. I'm going to eat your deductible and I'm going to pay for a new roof. 90% of people will jump on that. And that's just not a great situation for the insurance company or the individual, because you're going to end up paying for it, whether it's in higher cost on your premium, and companies are trying to get away from that.
Okay, so another thing that I know has come up with people, you offer home and auto. Mm-hmm. When it comes to that, you want home and auto.
Yes, but Eric, I've probably written more policies in the last year with one company having an auto and another company having the home, because my company's independent agents know I've got other choices, so they'll give an in-agency discount as well if I've got your auto. So you still get a discount, but sometimes it just doesn't make sense to bundle it with the same company. So we look at that, and I'm very honest and open with the client and say, doesn't make sense to put you with the same company.
So, but also along that route, like I think about let's say the homeowner who, they just bought a house, but they've had their home. Again, I'm just going to use just for generic terms because it comes to mind,
Yeah.
like Geico or
Yeah.
one of those. And they say, hey, so Val, I want you to do my homeowner's insurance. Are you okay with them having their other point of catastrophe being with another carrier, or not carrier, but insurance agent, or do you want it all in-house?
I'm not, because I don't know what those other risks are, and I can't properly recommend coverages if I don't see the whole thing.
So it makes sense to have everything under one roof.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you'll have a lot of agents that won't. They'll just write. Our philosophy is if we write it, we want to control the entire account so we know what's happening. You know, I have clients that will have 6 autos, they'll have 4 homes, they'll have, toys, and it's really hard. They need an umbrella policy, which we'll talk about, but $1 million at least in liability. And if someone else has that coverage, then it's a hassle to get the deck sheet and to make it. So we want to make sure that we have it all, so we can offer professional advice.
I think that makes a lot of sense, because you're insuring their biggest assets. You want to know the full story.
Yes.
So that you can make sure every piece is covered properly. Mm-hmm. And you maybe not over-insuring in some area because you got to know the whole thing.
Let me tell you this story. I had a guy call me last year, and he said, hey, I just need liability coverage because I bought this piece of property. I'm not ready to build on it yet, but I need liability. I said, okay. And I said, have you contacted the agent? He was an out-of-state client. I said, have you contacted your agent? And he said, no. And I said, call your agent and see if they can extend liability. They could for less than $100. I could have written him a policy for more, but it wasn't the best use of his time. He could get it a lot easier. That's what a professional agent can do. If I have everything, I might be able to extend liability somewhere to save you some money. So that's why you want to see the whole picture.
I like it. So you mentioned an umbrella policy. For those who don't know, what is an umbrella policy, and tell us a little more.
An umbrella policy or an excess liability policy, they can be called both. Usually an umbrella will extend with the same risk of your either underlying auto and home or boat or RV, whatever the underlying policy is. But it gives you an additional layer of $1 million to protect you. Now, most people, when they think of accidents, they worry about the fender bender in the parking lot, or, I tell people, my job is to cover you not for the accident that'll ruin your day, but the one that'll ruin your life. And an umbrella policy is one way to try to prevent that. So you don't have to sell assets, you don't have to bankrupt. Now, you can do all those things maybe, but what disruption to your life is that? And we're not talking for a week, we're talking for 5 years, 7 years. I mean, it can financially impact you and change your life. And the umbrella policy gives you $1 million over, so you don't do that. It's just a great way. I recommend them. On every proposal we send out an umbrella. They can be as cheap as $225 for the year, and that's what we do. We also recommend uninsured motorists because that's a big deal as well. In Tennessee, 25% of people do not have insurance.
It's crazy.
Yeah, one of them hits you, disables you, you can't work. What are you going to do? If you have low limits, then you're going to get $50,000, $100,000. And you've got to change your home, you've got to change your job, or you can't work. Those are life-altering events.
Yeah, that's which again, insurance is one of those funny things. Because like we always feel as a consumer,
I hate paying premiums, Eric.
Yeah.
I hate paying premiums as well.
As a consumer, you're like, what am I paying this for? And hopefully, the truth of the matter is, hopefully you never have to find out why you're paying it.
That's the best case scenario.
That's the best case scenario. But the truth of the matter is stuff happens all the time.
Yes.
Stuff happens all the time, and unexpectedly. You think about like we live in East Tennessee. We both like to go out on the lake.
Amen.
And it's one of life's pleasures.
With a lot of risk, though.
With a lot of risk. Like I think about boating accidents. Kids out there on jet skis. Things happen. That's a scenario where you want to be covered. You want to be protected, or you want to not have that change. I mean, obviously, some accidents are going to change your life forever anyways.
Yes.
But anything you could do to make it better. Anyways.
I got a great friend of mine that she's got a sibling that's going through an event. There was a car wreck and permanently disabled. And so they're looking at, they had a $3 million umbrella, and they don't know that that's enough. And people get very uncomfortable when I say this, but in insurance and my deal, death is a lot better outcome than a disability, because with a death you can attach a value to that life. With a disability, you got a big question mark there as to what's the cost.
Yeah.
And that's where it is. It's not, you know me. I'm fun. I love to have a great time. But when you start talking insurance, I've seen what's happened. I know how it can change your life.
It's kind of dark.
Very dark, very dark. But with the proper protection, you can have light there.
Yeah.
And that's what we're about. And beacon, thus, that's a great segue. That's why I named that, because I do want to be a beacon. I want to be an educator. I have an education degree, and that's how we handle it. We don't just do. I write people like I would cover my family, like I would protect my family. All my clients have my cell phone. They can call me. We want to be that accessible. I've been doing this 30 years and have had 2 abuses on the cell phone issue, so it's kind of worth the convenience.
So we're running a little short on time. I want to. Is there anything else insurance related you want to talk about real quick?
No, we talked about the umbrella. I would say this: find someone and develop a relationship with them. Someone that knows you, someone that can handle things and protect you, that can provide options for you, especially when you're young.
All right. Well, let's switch gears just for a
Okay.
minute, okay? Because let's talk about some of your favorite things. You've been in this
There are
area.
a lot of favorite things.
To be completely honest, a lot of your favorite things are a lot of my favorite things.
I know, that's why we get along so well, right?
So one thing I know, because there's 2 seasons of the year that get both of us very excited.
Absolutely
And
insane.
We're coming into one right now, and that's lake season. So talk about you've had a boat for a long time. You're a lake person. Well, if I'm somewhere else and I'm like, man, Knoxville sounds nice. I try to tell people my experience, but what's your experience of what do you like about lake life?
I love lake life because I'm pretty intense too. I love to have a good time. People go, "You're so intense," and my comment always is, "You've never seen me on the lake," because I can take an inner tube, float, and I can just hang out for hours there. It is the one way to kick back, relax, and let I just visualize the water clearing out my mind, because that's what it does. A lot of opportunity. They have boat clubs. If you don't want the maintenance or the hassle of having a boat, find a friend with a boat. Always offer gas money, though. That's a great thing too. But those type of things, you see people hooked up. I live near Prater Flats, and you'll have 8, 10, 15 boats hooked up, and then another 15. It's just really a great situation. And my gosh, you can lock through, go down. I've been to Chattanooga on a pontoon boat. So it's a great thing.
You and some friends actually made some stops along the way. Like, didn't you?
Oh my gosh, we make an annual trip. I've done it 4 years now, all the way down Chattanooga, and we stop at Airbnbs or, Uchi has some floating cabins. We've stayed in downtown Chattanooga, so there's just so much to do.
That's something that's definitely on my list. I've been Chattanooga, and I've been all the way down to Alabama. But that was on some friends boats. I would like to do exactly that, where we stop at some Airbnbs, and like make it kind of like a just this fun little trip.
It's like a vacation, a driving vacation, but you're using a boat.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun to see the different people, the different marinas with their own personalities. I just think it's a great way to relax.
And the thing about the lake around here is it's not one. It is a one size fits all. Like, you've got people out there with big yachts. You've got people out there with little pontoon boats. You've got people
fishing.
Yeah, there's a lot of people fishing. Big fishing area. You've got people on jet skis. You just name it. You got the people at Prater's Flat like to tie up. That's not normally. I mean, every once in a while that's
not
fun.
me.
Every once in a while that's kind of fun. But yeah, normally I'm about going and chilling out somewhere or going for a cruise, and just taking in the view and the weather and it's fun.
I think the one thing too is boaters, most that I've experienced, and I think you have jerks in every phase of life, but most boaters are just chilled. I remember early on, I was pretty novice boater, and I didn't pay attention to the gas, and I ran out of gas. And this fisherman with a small boat pulled my 24-foot deck boat in because he said I'd want somebody to help me. And I always help people on the water too, but that's a good thing about it. I think most boaters are chill, great people, good conversations, so a lot of fun.
Well, and I would say for anybody who's like never locked through, number one, that is an experience. Number two,
it's great.
While it's a little intimidating, the lockmasters actually were all pretty cool.
Oh yeah, especially if you say, "Hey, this is my first time."
Yeah.
They'll usually be when you call them up, and it's amazing to me how many boat owners here have never locked through.
Yeah.
They've been down to Calhoun's to eat or whatever, but they haven't taken that 30 minutes an hour to lock through and go.
And it opens up a whole nother world of lake.
Yes.
All right. So the second season. So that we have lake season, and then we have football.
Nico.
Season.
We have football coming. Nico's coming. Yes.
So for somebody, I try to explain it to people. Somebody who's never been to a Tennessee football game. I said, sometimes it's not even about the game. It's about the day. It's about the tailgate.
It's about the experience.
It's about the experience.
And I'm about experience.
Yes, you are. And so I'll be honest with you. Like, there are a lot of people that tailgate for a football game, but we've been tailgating together for a while.
2 years now.
And just have a lot of fun. What is it about tailgate? Explain that to somebody who's never done it. What
I'm going to take longer than I should on this.
Well, yeah.
So I came up, and my drop dead that time, we're okay.
Okay.
When I came up here, I'm afraid to tell the number. When I came in 1983, I went to my first UT football game in the nosebleed, and I remember calling my mom and saying, "Oh my goodness, it was incredible. You had 110 at that time, I think, 1,000 people. It was just unbelievable." So that experience of being in the stadium, even if you don't like football and you just people watch, there are plenty of people to watch.
Yeah.
So you can see that. But I had a woman that came by our tailgate. I don't know if you were there around us at the time, but she said, "My son is a senior now, and when he came for visitation day, they came to a football game, and you invited us into your tailgate, and we had such a great time and knew that this was where he needed to go." That's the kind of relationship I think you can establish or have when you tailgate. And it's, we have certain people that are there every week. We know those people. Some are from Chattanooga, some are from Bristol. They're all over the state. But we all come together that day, and hopefully that day starts early. It usually does with us.
Yeah.
And you're right, the football game is part of it, but it's the friends and the good times and the laughter that you have during that time.
And it's always an experience. I mean, there are definitely some days. The season change that happens with football season is crazy because it starts off and it's still hot. And
Yes.
it goes all the way through to cold, right?
And needing a fire.
Yes, cold.
Yes.
You never know. There could be that rainy day. There's always external factors that also play into the experience. One thing that, one thing that I know is really cool. Talk about inviting people into the tailgate. We've made good friends with people, Georgia fans, right?
Oh yes. Shout out to Johnny.
Yes. So good friends with them. That turned into us going down there to watch a game with them, and while we didn't have a great time in the game, we didn't. We had a good time at the tailgate. So creating that kind of experience that goes both ways. I know we what was it? LSU fans. We had an awesome tailgate when we played LSU that one year. We had literally like Cajuns in the tailgate.
Absolutely. Who approved of our food as well. Yes.
It was fun. So definitely something. I would have to say, if you're even remotely a football fan, even if you're not a football fan,
if you're a people person,
yes, like going to this type of thing is a great way. It's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to have fun and connect. And there is nothing like seeing, like you said. I mean, the stadium holds a little over 100,000.
100,000, yeah.
But outside the stadium, there's so much more. So when you see that sea of orange just moving around, it's just wild.
There are a lot of people that come to tailgate and don't go to the game.
A lot.
I mean, a lot. You would be surprised at that number.
And then we've got the Vol Navy.
Yes.
That's a big deal. That's where people bring all their boats all the way down. They tie off and they hang out typically from Friday to Sunday.
Yes.
That's a big deal. So lots of cool stuff with the football game. Okay, so one other thing, and we'll take a few minutes. You're involved in a lot of nonprofits.
I am.
This is something I like to touch on with people because I think a big part of being a volunteer is helping others. What are some of the nonprofits that have really moved you, that if somebody was listening and you were like, hey, this is one I would highly suggest. If you want to get involved and help people, here's one that's been big.
Gosh, there's so many.
And there are. There are so many.
There are so many. I think ones that have touched me or affected me, I think Wesley House is a great nonprofit because they mold young kids at young ages. And they provide daycare for parents on a sliding scale that couldn't afford regular daycare. But it's education, and they have after-school programs and field trips in the summer. So that's a great one as well. Mobile meals, I've delivered mobile meals for, my gosh, I think October will be 21 years. But going into homes where someone's elderly, they may not have family living, but they can stay in their home if they can get food delivered. So that's a great thing. And I'm going to tell you, there are many times I'm like, oh my, I don't have time to do this today. And then I'm like, I'm so glad I did this today, because I always get more than I give. I'm forgetting some. Help me here. Sleep in Heavenly Peace. We just did that one, and because I'm a member of Rotary, we built actually 51 beds in a day, and then we delivered 30 of those last Saturday. And to see parents, the first apartment we walked in, 2 kids were actually sleeping on couches. So we had 2 beds for them, so it was their own bed. So that makes a huge, huge difference as well. And I know there are a couple I'm forgetting, but
those are the ones that have touched you, more recently and for probably a long period of time.
Yeah, and care cuts. Two more, I do remember.
Okay.
Care Cuts is for the homeless, and it started with Marty Baker, who wanted to make people feel good about themselves and just give them a haircut. And it's just been impressive how, excuse me, they started one time a month. Now they're open every day and helping people get off the street, which is a big deal because a lot of those people are veterans, people who have given a lot back to the community. And the last one is Child Help, who help children who have been abused, and you've been to some fundraisers with me on that. They do a tremendous service in our community, and it's something a lot of people don't want to talk about, but it happens in every socioeconomic area, and so we definitely need help for them.
Yeah, big child advocacy
center.
Mm-hmm.
Providing free therapy for kids,
and also providing that is something that, like, if you're into like really looking out for children,
yes,
I highly recommend calling them, seeing if you could get a tour, understanding more firsthand. But they provide a service to where if a child comes in who's maybe was going through abuse or whatever, they can actually, go to a place where they can feel somewhat comfortable,
safe.
They can then tell their story, one time, where that, to a professional, and it's recorded, and then that can be then used. So they don't have to go. So that can be used in court or however it needs to be used by the officials. And the benefit of that is that child doesn't have to be asked those questions over and
traumatized.
Over. Yeah, and have to relive that scenario.
Yeah, it's called the forensic interview, and we actually have 3 forensic interview rooms now, so it's a big deal.
So, and again, those are things that you don't think about, you don't see it. But it does happen. Even in East Tennessee, I hate to say it. I love this area, but yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Over 1,400 kids last year, and that's
wild.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Okay, so last thing.
Okay.
Last thing, we'll wrap this up. Favorite place to eat?
Oh, if I could go to one place in Knoxville, it would be Savelli's on Sutherland.
Savelli's on Sutherland. I don't think I've been there.
It's a little hole-in-the-wall Italian place.
Yeah?
And they have the best Italian. Liz is the owner. And it's really authentic Italian, very, very good. They usually have fresh fish every week, a special. I don't even order off the menu. I just get one of the specials. So that would be, yeah.
Savelli.
And I hope I haven't made it harder to get in there now.
Yeah. Giving away the secrets. Well, awesome. We'll have to give that a try.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Val.
I really appreciate it, Eric.
Hey, I appreciate you. I think it's just important, hopefully whoever is listening to this, no matter where, obviously I'd love for them to call you, but no matter where they have their insurance house, they need to take insurance seriously.
They do, and there are a lot of great insurance agents out there. You need to get one you can communicate with, one that you trust, one that will give you advice, and even, advice you don't want to hear. I just told a client to eat $4,500 and not report a claim because her son would get non-renewed if she did. So she didn't want to hear it, but she really appreciated it. So that's what they need to do.
So let's just say that they find out that they don't have an insurance agent that is willing to sit down and talk. How do they get a hold of you, Val?
Are you going to put this on the screen? No. You can call our offices 865-213-2111. And if you want to call my cell, 865-680-0331. You can Google me as well. Email. Do I need to give email?
You don't.
Okay.
But you have a website.
I do have a website, yeah, and that will lead you. Can put info on there as well if you want to.
So just Google Beacon Insurance Advisor.
Yeah, Beacon Insurance. Actually, it's beaconprotects.com.
Okay.
And if you do that, there's a place that you can actually fill in some information, and it comes directly to us, and we'll reach out.
Awesome.
For certain. So.
Awesome. Well, good deal. Well, I definitely appreciate having you on the show today. I hope everybody got a lot of great information out of that. And I'm gonna probably see when I can book a time to go eat Savelli's because I love Italian.
Good. Let's do it together.
Let's do it.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.